Hi, I'm Bowen, and welcome back to The Bad Place. Please comment with your thoughts throughout the video, just keep it respectful, guys. And if you like the content, please like and subscribe. Today, we're going over part 2 of a series talking about problems impacting the United States and the West as a whole. So if you want to see more of this series, or if you are interested in the other show that I do called Burst the Bubble, which is a both sides or moderate show that kind of focuses on more lighthearted topics, then subscribe, because what are you doing? You want to see more of this content? Then subscribe. Today, we're talking about homelessness. And I do want to say I am going to be looking at a lot of statistics, so if it looks like I'm not paying attention to you, I apologize. I'm probably reading. If that bothers you, pop in some headphones and listen to me like a podcast. All right? Let's hop into it. So, in 2025, 1,456,923 individuals were either homeless or living in taxpayer subsidized or funded housing for the homeless in the United States. This marks a 27% increase since 2013 and an unsheltered homelessness increase of 36%. A taxpayer-funded beds increase of 151% and a continuum of care or COC increase of 111%. The two states with the largest homeless population in 2025 were California and New York. These numbers are actually, though, part of a trend that is a little bit of good. From 2024 to 2025, the homelessness population dropped around 7%. Now for the less good. That decrease comes with a harsh reality for the remaining individuals who are homeless. So, in 2025, 30% of homeless individuals were considered to have something called chronic patterns of homelessness, the majority of which are unsheltered and unaccounted for. Compared to 2013, chronic homelessness has increased by 81% in individuals. In 2025, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration found that 68% of cities report that substance abuse was the largest initial cause of homelessness amongst single adults. Across the nation, 40% of homeless individuals abuse alcohol and 30% abuse drugs. Data estimates that approximately 40% of homeless individuals at any given time have a diagnosable substance use disorder, while only about 10% of the total population of the United States has a substance use disorder annually. So, in 2024 as well, another study found that 67% of homeless people were presently experiencing a mental health crisis or ongoing disorder, and that 75% of the total homeless population had experienced both at some point in their lives. An estimated high-end number is that 76% of homeless people in the first world are experiencing a crisis or disorder right now. The homeless population is approximately 500 times more likely to be arrested and charged with felony than the rest of the population. All of that data, though, represents 0.23% of the total US population. So if you think about that, 10% of US adults are likely to have a substance use disorder annually, but 40% homeless adults have one at any given time. And that 40% is part of a group that is only 0.23% of the total US population. That is a staggering per capita statistic. Staggering. The United States Department of Housing and Urban Development Continuum of Care is a coalition designed to connect those individuals in homeless communities with different services available in their area. And the National Association of Free and Charitable Clinics is an online database with a list of free clinics in an area, including those offering behavioral health and mental health care services. However, all of that care only works if the individuals work the program and aim to get better. If not, they pose a serious risk to themselves and the others when they're not in care. Without going into great detail about how this sort of care works, a direct approach to this care is considered the most effective. Being in a facility where they are provided care, monitored, and exposed to aid for both addiction and mental health provides improvement at the highest rates. As someone who got their start in kind of political conversations in addiction care and mental health, along with conservation, this is something that's actually very important to me. And when I was researching for this video, I wanted to know how important it was to the rest of the population. Democrats and Republicans support homelessness reform. 69% of all voters polled in a 2024 Public Safety and Homelessness poll support requiring homeless individuals to participate in job training, mental health, and sobriety programs before receiving any housing benefits whatsoever. 69% of all voters oppose allowing homeless people to camp out on public property like sidewalks or parks. 72% support moving them into housing. 67% support creating designated homeless camping areas with access to hygiene facilities and social services that are away from business and residential areas. 67% also support increasing fines and penalties for selling drugs at or near homeless service facilities. And 60% support criminal penalties for homeless service providers who allow drug usage and trafficking within their facilities. Lastly, 66% of voters polled support financial audits of all homeless care providers. Do you want to know what policies are most often vilified in the media? Do you know what policies are the rarest to see put out by either Republican or Democrat representatives? Everything we just went over. However, the majority, over 50% of the population, supports these policies. So, why does it feel like the homeless problem is growing? How can a population so large, when it comes to the overwhelming amount that is mentally ill, be left to grow in what is considered the first world, the developed world, the world that has used capitalism to lift so many people out of poverty, out of suffering? Why is it that this population continues to grow and has two of the most debilitating afflictions, mental disorders and addiction? Well, groups like the National Alliance to End Homelessness almost exclusively support Democrat policies to combat homelessness. So maybe the answer is in there. Let's look at what these policies are. Well, for starters, the majority of these policies focus primarily on increasing government spending for homeless care. So none of that reform that we talked about earlier. Here's the real rub. They reduce oversight. So what about those audits? They expand the usage of vouchers for private businesses to accept them without considering what those businesses could be selling. They codify care as voluntary, meaning that mandatory care that the majority of the population supports, Democrats don't. The Democrat bills don't. And some of the biggest organizations aimed at ending homelessness and helping homelessness don't support that. And if we look back to our conversation about mental health and addiction, what did I say was the best form of care for those things? Direct care. When you make that care voluntary, it's not direct. They support the expanding the ability for homeless people to be added automatically as well to things such as voter rolls without any system accuracy being approved, which then, of course, when this is tacked on to a bill that's relatively common sense, results in multiple people across both sides of the aisle voting against it. Because you know what that does? That enables voter fraud, one of the most contentious issues in the United States. Ultimately, these bills serve to use the homeless population rather than help them. And they fail to address any real issues and provide any of the real results and solutions that people want. Let's look at some DSA, because we looked at some Democrat. Let's look at some DSA, so socialist policies around the homelessness population. In New York City, Mayor Zohran Mandawi passed a policy that revoked the mandatory removal of the homeless population from streets before a snowstorm. This was intended for their own benefit and held them only as long as temperatures were dangerous. But in the name of choice for the homeless, a population so wrought with mental health issues and addiction, in the name of the choices for them, Zoran revoked this. This original policy was in place to keep them safe because they are in a situation where they may not know a storm is coming, or in a mental state where they may not be able to make the proper decisions for their own safety. We do this all the time with contractual capacity in standard law. This is not some dissolution of individual rights. This is actually a normal practice in most areas of the law. When you are no longer of proper mentation, this is partly why wills say of sound mind and body, you are not granted the same sort of freedom as other individuals because you are not capable of making decisions for yourself. And those laws are very strict and stringent. And one of the things that can impact them is extreme addiction and extreme mental health disorders. But the socialists, who claim to be in the interest of these people the most, lifted it. Want to know what happened? 14 people died in a snowstorm. Pretty much it happened almost immediately after Zoran lifted this as well. Turns out, when you're strung out or mentally ill, you make poor choices, like staying out in a snowstorm, and that will cause you to die. Now, let's look at the right, because the right has also struck its hand at homeless reforms. Trump signed an executive order to make it easier to remove the homeless population from the streets. And guess what NPR did? Mind you, think back to the policies that we talked about that were popular. Trump's executive order for making it easier to remove homeless people from the streets fits within those policies. And NPR's response was to publish an article discussing about how critics decry the shift towards pushing people into treatment. Direct treatment is the most effective treatment. The population supports direct treatment. The population supports strict reform. NPR and critics decry the shift towards pushing people into treatment. According to the polling, Trump's policies were supported. They invoked active and direct treatment for the homelessness population, removing the choice and requiring treatment and improvement. Now, Trump is often cited as not being the establishment right. So, let's look at the establishment right and what they put out. The establishment right pushes this further, criminalizing the act of being homeless in different ways. In 2025, the HUD proposed capping permanent housing funding at 30%, down from about 90%, something somewhat in line with Trump's policies. These policies are closer to the public demand and directly aimed at reducing the homeless population directly with less spending, instead of reducing it via spending and opening the doors for exploitation, like the Democrats, or just straight up making decisions that result in their death, like the socialists. Trump continues to push rough and direct policies that are attacked and shot down by the left-wing establishment, despite general public support. Even if, people hear it's a Trump policy and they don't support it, when they're polled without Trump's name attached, they support the policy. The behavior of the establishment right, though, only seems to drive reactionary support from the left because it goes to the absolute most extreme. I am not for criminalizing the act of homelessness. I'm for moving them into care. In the end, the data on mental health in the community, along with the available information on the treatment for these things and the general public support, a policy of direct care, not criminalization, nor slow or costly policies, is the most effective and impactful for the homeless population and wider society. I mean, think about the streets in San Francisco and how that appears. Think about the way things feel when you're in a city with multiple homeless people. Think about the fact that, 500 times more likely to be arrested for a felony. This is not just over-policing. They do commit violent offenses in higher rates. The best solution for the homeless population and society as a whole is to get them the direct help that they need. That's why you have certain people who are commentators saying things like, reopen asylums. We're not calling back to the dark pictures in your mind of what an asylum is. No, we are saying we need to get these people direct care because they need it and society needs it. Thank you for watching, and remember to comment your thoughts and opinions on today's topic. Just, guys, keep it respectful. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day, and God bless.